Hey guys, Ted McGrath. So, what is Microstrategy? Why is it being called Radioactive Bitcoin? And why is it going up 2 to 3x? Meaning, if Bitcoin goes up $1, it goes up by $2 or $3. So, friends of mine have been asking me this question recently. Some don't know what MicroStrategy is, some don't know how they're doing what they're doing. I can share this with you, having followed MicroStrategy since 2018, 2019. I bought some MicroStrategy back then, and I bought the bulk of my MicroStrategy recently, early this year. So, what is it? And I'm going to explain to you in this video a little bit about the backstory and why people are calling it radioactive Bitcoin in a good way. So, years ago, MicroStrategy decided to put $250 million of their reserves, their treasury, into Bitcoin. And since then, they've put about $37 billion into Bitcoin. So the big question is, how are they doing this? Is this going to continue? And is MicroStrategy some type of Ponzi scheme, or are they manipulating the market, or some of the questions people get who are skeptical? Rightfully so. If you don't understand it, you don't know. I personally understand that it has been going up 2x to 3x. So if my Bitcoin is going up $1, MicroStrategy is going up $2 or $3. Okay. And so at the time of this recording, I own both Bitcoin, I own MicroStrategy as well. Okay. And a larger percentage of my bag that I hold right now is MicroStrategy, simply because the performance has been astronomical since the beginning of the year. I believe since the beginning of the year, the returns on MicroStrategy since about January 1st are roughly around 700%. Go check the data on that. Okay. So let's talk about it. All right. So Michael Saylor, years ago, if you don't know who he is, he owns a company called MicroStrategy. He decides that he's going to take this software company that's doing $500 million in revenue a year, and he is going to take $250 million of their reserves, all of their cash reserves, or all the reserves in their treasury, and he's going to put it into Bitcoin and buy Bitcoin. At the time in 2019, this looks crazy to most of the world. At the time, I was following it very closely. I was like, wow, this guy's a genius. Now there's many people talking about MicroStrategy. Okay. So over the years, he buys more and more Bitcoin. Last week, today's 12/1/24, December 1st, 2024. Last week or the week before, he buys another 55,000 Bitcoin for about $5.5 billion approximately. And about a month and a half ago, or maybe a month ago, he announces a plan that MicroStrategy is going to buy $42 billion more of Bitcoin. That means more of Bitcoin, not what they have, but more of Bitcoin over the next 3 years. And I believe in the past month or so, approximately, since he made that announcement, there's close to about 8 to 10 billion that's been purchased. You need to go fact check it and check it out. Okay. And I believe that he just bought more. He just posted something on Twitter this morning, or now known as X. And it looks like he's probably bought more, and we will find out officially tomorrow. Okay. So, so here's the deal, right? So this is basically what he's doing. Now, the reason he decided 6 years ago or so to buy Bitcoin is because he was looking at what he had in his treasury in terms of their company. And he realized that money was being printed. This is right around the time of COVID. And he realized that if money continues to be printed like this, the more supply of money we have, the more printing of money we have, the more our dollar gets eroded. So it's kind of like, if you held $1 million and in the last 4 or 5 years, we now doubled the amount of money in supply by printing double the amount, which actually happened. We printed double the amount of money. So all the money that's ever been in existence in terms of dollars since the beginning of the US, in 4 years, we printed, and now we doubled that. So whatever you held on to 4 or 5 years ago, if you had $1 million, since we doubled the printing of money, that $1 million you had is worth a lot less. So in his mind, he was looking at this and he was seeing that we were going to continue to print money. And he's like, if I sit on this cash in my company and it earns 3 or 4% or 5% in treasury bills, in 5 or 6 years, the company's going to be out of business. So the idea was people were looking at Saylor going, this guy's absolutely crazy. He's nuts. What's he doing? This is a crazy, risky move. But in his mind, he's like, in 6 years, we're sitting on a melting iceberg. It's going to melt. The company's going to be out of business. And the dollar is melting because of inflation. So we're going to take our money. We're going to put it into Bitcoin. And he did. And he kept buying more, and he kept buying more, and he kept buying more. So the big question is, why is a company that holds $37 billion of Bitcoin, approximately 1.5% of the Bitcoin supply, why is this company, Microstrategy, continuing to buy company, but the bigger question, buy Bitcoin? But the bigger question is, why are they worth $100 billion now? So they have $37 billion worth of Bitcoin, but the company is worth over $100 billion. So if you do the math, let's round it up, say it's 40 billion. If you have 40 billion and your company is worth 100 billion, it's worth 2.5x what you hold. So I get 40 billion of Bitcoin. My company's being valued at 100 billion. For every Bitcoin I hold, it's worth 2.5x of the Bitcoin. So hence, when MicroStrategy goes and buys a Bitcoin or invests money into Bitcoin, people are wondering, why is MicroStrategy going up 2x to 3x? So for every dollar your Bitcoin is going up, MicroStrategy is going up by $2. In some cases, 3. Why is this happening is the question. And will this continue to happen? So with Saylor's plan, he just announced when they had their stock earnings announced, he just announced that they are going to be buying $42 billion more of Bitcoin. So how are they going to do this? Now, number one, since that announcement over a month ago, they've purchased approximately 8 billion or maybe 10 billion more Bitcoin. So the plan was to buy 42 billion more Bitcoin over the next 3 years. In the last 45 days, they've bought approximately 8 to 10 billion of that 42 billion. Okay. So amazing, right? So what are they doing? One, as a company, a public company, they can issue stock. So it's really simple. They issue stock in the marketplace. Let's say, I'm MicroStrategy and I go, hey, Joe, I'm issuing stock to you. Give me money for the stock. It's not unlike you go and you buy Google stock or you buy Apple stock or you buy Tesla stock. You give them money and they give you paper that says you own the stock, right? And so what he's doing in the marketplace is issuing stock. And so when he issues stock to you and hypothetically you give him money, he takes your money and he puts it and he buys Bitcoin. Make sense? Okay. So simple. He's buying more Bitcoin. All right. Secondly, and this is the play that's also very ingenious, is he's also issuing debt, also known as bonds, right? It's basically he's getting a loan, to put it in simple terms, right? So there's other companies in the marketplace that they want exposure to Bitcoin, right? They want exposure to it, but because of their legal structure in the company, or also because of their investing policies, where they don't want the volatility, and they're not allowed to take on that risk, they will buy bonds, which are called MicroStrategy bonds. Okay, and so by issuing these bonds, they're collecting money from other companies. So let's say a company recently, this just happened, Berkshire Hathaway, which is a company that's held by Warren Buffett. Berkshire Hathaway recently bought $1 billion of MicroStrategy bonds. Now, mind you, a couple of years ago, Warren Buffett, his business partner who's passed, Charlie Munger, he recently, a couple of years ago, said that Bitcoin was rat poison, that he would never buy it, that it was a hoax. And recently, Berkshire Hathaway just bought MicroStrategy bonds. Now, when you buy MicroStrategy bonds, basically that company, Berkshire Hathaway, basically loans $1 billion to MicroStrategy. And with that $1 billion, MicroStrategy is taking in it and it's buying more Bitcoin. So let me just break it down in 2 ways. One, MicroStrategy issues stock. You give MicroStrategy money for their stock, they go buy Bitcoin. MicroStrategy is issuing bonds. You loan money to MicroStrategy, and the money you loan to them, they're going to buy Bitcoin. Pretty simple, right? Okay. So what's happening is, and this is the fascinating part about the money that's being loaned to MicroStrategy, aka bonds. In some cases, they are getting money loaned to them at 0% interest. Now, imagine this for a second. Let's take a moment and imagine that somebody came to you and they're like, hey, I'm going to give you $1 million. You don't have to pay me any interest on it. And you were able to take that $1 million and put it into Bitcoin. Would your net worth be higher 4 or 5 years from now, assuming that Bitcoin goes up over the next 4 or 5 years? And if you look at any 4-year period, Bitcoin has made money over those 4-year periods. So the risk is very, 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 very low, right? So somebody says, hey, I'm going to loan you $1 million. You're like, I'll take the $1 million, right? And you don't have to pay me any interest. So this is what's happening. They're getting money loaned to them for 0% interest. In some cases, they're paying some interest with some of the loans, but some of it is 0%, and they're buying more Bitcoin. So they issue stock, they get money, they buy Bitcoin. They issue bonds, people loan them money, they buy more Bitcoin. Now, you might be wondering, how does this work with the bonds? It's really simple, okay? The bonds that are being purchased from them, MicroStrategy is not paying out interest right now. And the deal in some of these situations is 4 or 5 years from now, if you loaned the money to MicroStrategy, in 5 years, you can then convert those dollars that you gave them. You can convert the stock, right? Or you can convert the dollars that you loan them into stock at whatever price it is 5 years from now. Okay. And if for some reason it doesn't hit the price target that you're anticipating, MicroStrategy just gives you back the money. And that's the deal. And so this is how they are leveraging money, right? They're leveraging money to buy more Bitcoin. And this is why the stock is going up, 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 up. And to say that that they're manipulating the market, which some people think. I was just watching another great video by a guy that I follow on Best Answers. He's an incredible guy. And he was talking about an example where the Hunt brothers in the 70s manipulated the silver market, and then eventually the silver market completely crashed and they lost all their money. And the difference is that the MicroStrategy is not manipulating the market. They own about 1.5% of all the Bitcoin in existence right now. They're totally transparent of every single purchase that they make. So when they make it, they announce it. They're in full compliance, and they are just a company that is buying Bitcoin. Okay. Since them announcing their strategy, there's many dozens and dozens and dozens of other companies that are using their reserves to buy Bitcoin. And in an economy where inflation is said to be 3%, but if you really look at what true inflation is every single year, if you're not earning anywhere from 12% to 14% a year on your money, you're not getting ahead. And if you look at the past history of the S&P 500 index over the last so many years, the S&P does around 12%, maybe 10% some years. This year it's doing better, okay? But the S&P index basically keeps up with inflation. Okay. So if you want to get ahead today, many companies are looking at this and they're adopting Bitcoin reserves in their company. And the US is now looking at adopting Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. Now, in a world where the dollar is losing more and more of its purchasing power, more and more of its value, because we keep printing and printing and printing money, the more money we print, the more the dollar loses its value. And the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is there's a fixed supply. There's only 21 million Bitcoin that can ever be issued, that will ever be in existence. I think 19 million or so has already been issued, which means there's only about 2 million in terms of the supply that will be issued over the next so many years. It's a very scarce asset. And because it's a scarce asset, it is not subject to inflation, because there's only so many that can ever be minted or issued, to put it in simple terms, okay? So that's why Bitcoin is a superior asset. That's why companies like MicroStrategy are gobbling up Bitcoin. And any smart person, I believe, that wants to be inflation proof to some degree over the next so many years will be smart in buying Bitcoin. This is not financial advice. I'm not giving financial advice to buy it at all. I'm just saying if I was in somebody's situation who's never known anything about Bitcoin, I would want to get educated of what's really going on so I could make smart decisions with my money. Because the truth is, the S&P 500 index just isn't going to cut it to outpace inflation. And bonds certainly aren't going to cut it to outpace inflation. If you're getting 4 or 5, 6% in bonds, and the real inflation cost is 10, 12, 14% per year, then there's no way bonds are going to outpace this. And sitting in cash, I'm not saying don't have some cash reserves, cash for emergencies, cash there in case maybe Bitcoin drops and there's volatility. But at the end of the day, if your money's sitting in cash, you're just losing value. You're losing purchasing power. And so this is why some companies are adopting a Bitcoin reserve policy. If the US adopts Bitcoin as a strategic national reserve and a strategic US reserve, it's going to change the game. And there's going to be billions and billions and billions of more dollars poured into Bitcoin. Other companies will follow. The US is becoming a superpower again. And what we do, many companies will follow. And when Trump gets in the office, we don't know when they're going to announce the actual or pass the bill on the strategic Bitcoin reserve. But when they do it, money's going to pour in, and other countries are going to follow. And there's many countries or some countries right now who are already adopting it, have already adopted Bitcoin as a reserve for some of their, I won't say dollars because they don't use dollars, but for some of their capital. So I hope this serves you. If you're wondering what MicroStrategy is and you missed some of this video, go back and watch it. I personally am invested in it, have been invested in it for a little while here now, and have reaped great returns from it. I would say my piece of advice to you is just get educated. Before you do anything, always get educated, do your due diligence, fact check things, listen to different sources of people that you trust, and make the best decision for you and your family. Hope this serves you. It's a fascinating topic. What MicroStrategy is doing, go watch some other videos in the marketplace on YouTube. You'll see there's a lot of people talking about MicroStrategy. I believe it is the most intelligent financial move of the last 100 years ever made by any company, and I think made by any one individual. So go check it out. Hope this serves you, and I will see you soon. If you have any questions, you can leave them down below in the comments. If you'd like to see more videos on this, I'm very studied on this. I've studied thousands of hours on Bitcoin, and I'm highly invested in this, and I've done very well on this. And so if you want to know anything else, put it in the comments below, and I'm happy to answer your questions. All right, stay well.